I set down my coffee mug and watched my son Michael scroll through real estate listings on his phone. He hadn't visited in 8 months before Catherine's funeral. Now he was here for the third time in 2 weeks, and he'd brought a retirement home brochure. That evening, after they left, I opened Catherine's leather folder, the one she'd labeled, "When the Time Comes," and called the lawyer about activating the Vancouver Island plan. The plan my wife had spent 5 years perfecting. The plan our children knew nothing about. The morning Catherine died, Michael asked about the house before he asked how I was doing. We were still in the hospital room. The nurse had just turned off the monitors. My wife of 43 years lay quiet under the white sheets, and my son was already doing mental math on property values in Altador. I saw him glance at his phone, thumb hovering over the calculator app. "Dad," he said, putting his hand on my shoulder, "we should talk. Soon. About the house. About what's next for you." I should have known then. Catherine would have known immediately. She always could read our children better than I could, but I was drowning in grief, and I mistook his concern for love. The funeral was on a Tuesday. Both children flew in, Michael from Toronto, Sarah from Vancouver. They'd moved away years ago, built their own lives, called on birthdays and Christmas. Normal adult children with normal adult lives, I'd told myself. Catherine had seen something different. "They're waiting," she'd said 3 years ago, on the day of her diagnosis. We were sitting in the oncologist's office, holding hands like teenagers, not for me to die, but for us to become inconvenient. "That's harsh," I'd replied. "It's true," she'd said quietly, "and we need to prepare." At the reception, after the funeral, Sarah hugged me tight. "We're so worried about you, Dad. This big house, all alone, it's too much." Michael nodded. "We've been talking. Mom would want you taken care of. We think it's time to consider options." "Options?" "Downsizing," Sarah said gently. "Or maybe a nice retirement community. You're 68. You shouldn't be dealing with yard work and stairs in a 4-bedroom house by yourself." They'd rehearsed this. I could tell by how smoothly Sarah's words flowed into Michael's nods, how they'd positioned themselves on either side of me like they were tag-teaming. Catherine's sister Margaret caught my eye from across the room. She knew. Catherine had told her. "Let's not talk about this today," I said. "Of course not," Michael agreed quickly. "We just want you to know we're here for you. Whatever you need." What I needed was my wife back. What I needed was to not hear my daughter discussing the square footage of my home while her mother's ashes sat in an urn 20 feet away. The first week after the funeral, they called every day. How was I eating? Was I sleeping? Had I thought about their suggestion? There was a lovely place in Arbor Lake. A friend of Sarah's mother-in-law lived there and loved it. Independent living, social activities, no maintenance. I made non-committal sounds and changed the subject. The second week, Michael showed up unannounced. He'd taken time off work, he said. Wanted to help me go through Catherine's things. Wanted to be there for me. We spent 3 days sorting through her closet, her jewelry, her books. Michael kept steering conversations back to the house. This place must feel empty now, right? All these rooms, all these memories. Sometimes a fresh start is healing, Dad. I found him in my office on the third day, looking at documents on my desk. Bank statements, insurance papers, the deed to the house. "Just trying to get a sense of what you're dealing with," he explained when I walked in. "Financially, we want to make sure you're secure." I removed the papers from his hands. "I'm fine, son." His jaw tightened for just a moment before he smiled. I know. I'm overstepping. I'm just worried." That night, after he left, I sat in Catherine's reading chair and opened the leather folder. Inside were letters, a dozen of them, each dated, each in her careful handwriting. The first was dated 2 months after her diagnosis. "My dearest Thomas," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably confused about what's happening with Michael and Sarah. Please don't be angry with them. They're doing exactly what I predicted they would do. And that's why we need to be smart about this." I read through the night. Letter after letter, Catherine had documented everything. Conversations she'd overheard. Things the children had said that I'd missed or dismissed. Plans they'd been making. One letter from a year ago. "Sarah called today. She asked if we'd updated our will lately. Said she was just checking to make sure everything was in order. Thomas. She didn't ask how I was feeling. Didn't ask about my last scan results. Just the will. Another from 6 months ago. Michael mentioned that real estate in Altador is skyrocketing. He suggested casually, over dinner, that it might be smart to sell while the market is hot. He said we could buy something smaller. Bank the difference for care costs down the road. He has no idea we don't need to bank anything. He's counting his inheritance before I'm even in the ground. The last letter was dated 1 week before she died. Thomas. By now you've realized I was right. I wish I wasn't. I wish our children were calling because they love you, not because they love what you have. But here we are. Here's what I've done. 5 years ago, I bought a cottage on Vancouver Island. Souk, right on the water. It's in a trust. The children don't know about it. The cottage is paid off, and there's an investment account attached $650,000, also in the trust, also invisible to them. I've worked with Margaret and with Donald Pritchard, remember him? Your old colleague's son, the estate lawyer. Everything is legal, airtight, and completely separate from our visible assets. The house in Calgary is still in both our names. My will leaves my half to you outright, so you own it entirely now. What you do with it is your choice. But Thomas, here's what I suggest. Let them think they're getting what they want. Let them push you towards selling. Let them believe they'll split the proceeds. And then, when the time is right, you leave. The cottage is ready. I've stocked it, furnished it, made it home. Margaret has the keys. Emily knows the plan and has agreed to help you transition. She's a good girl, that one. Takes after her mother. You deserve peace, Thomas. You deserve to spend your remaining years with people who love you for you, not for what you can give them. I know you'll feel guilty about this. You always want to believe the best in people, especially our children. But please, trust me one last time. I love you. Always have, always will. Even from wherever I am now, I'm still trying to take care of you. You're Catherine, P.S. There are videos too, in the folder marked C's Messages. Watch them when you need to hear my voice. I sat there until dawn, the letters spread across my lap. Then I watched the videos, 12 of them. Catherine had recorded them over the years, each one a message for a specific situation. One was titled, If You're Doubting Yourself. Another, If You're Thinking of Forgiving Them Too Soon. Another, When You're Finally on the Island. In that first video, she looked tired but determined. Her hair was shorter from the treatments, but her eyes were sharp. Thomas, I know you're probably thinking I've been too harsh, that I've misjudged them, that maybe they really do care and I'm being paranoid. But sweetheart, I need you to trust me. I've watched them for years now. I've seen how they look at our house, how they calculate, how Sarah checks real estate prices when she thinks I'm not looking, how Michael brings up long-term care facilities as if he's concerned about us. But really, he's concerned about preserving his inheritance. This isn't the children we raised. Or maybe it is, and we just didn't want to see it. Either way, you need to protect yourself. Use the plan. Please. The third week, Sarah arrived with her husband, Derek. They'd driven from Vancouver, she said. Wanted to spend time with me. Help me adjust. Derek was a real estate agent. What a coincidence. We had dinner together. I made Catherine's beef stew recipe, and Sarah cried over it, and then Derek started talking about the market. Your neighborhood has really appreciated, Thomas. Houses are selling for 20, sometimes 25% over asking. If you were thinking of downsizing, now would be the time. I could handle the sale for you, family rate, make sure everything's smooth. I took a sip of wine. I appreciate that, Derek. Just think about it, Sarah added. No pressure. But Dad, honestly, this house is too much for you. Michael and I worry constantly. What if you fall on those stairs? What if something breaks and you can't fix it? You're not getting any younger. I was 68, not 90. I ran 5 kilometers 3 times a week. But I let her talk. There's a condo development near us in Vancouver, Sarah continued. Modern, elevator, security. You'd be close to me. We could have dinner every week. We haven't had dinner weekly in 15 years, I said quietly. She blinked. That's why this would be good. A fresh start for all of us. Mom's death has made me realize how precious time is. I want to be closer to you, Dad. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. But then I saw Derek glance at his phone, checking messages, and I saw Sarah's eyes flick to the kitchen, mentally staging it for sale photos. I'll think about it, I told them. The fourth week, both children came together. An intervention, basically. They'd even brought printouts. 3 retirement homes, 2 condo listings, 1 assisted living facility, just to have options. We sat at the dining room table, the table Catherine had refinished herself 20 years ago, and they laid out their case like lawyers. Dad, we need to talk seriously, Michael said. You're alone now. The house is too big. The neighborhood's changing. The property taxes are insane. The upkeep is endless. Mom did so much of the maintenance, and now that's all on you. I can handle maintenance. But should you have to? Sarah jumped in. You should be enjoying retirement, not worrying about furnaces and roofs and yard work. And honestly, Dad, financially, it makes sense. This house is your biggest asset. If you sell now, you could live comfortably anywhere, do anything you want. Your mother and I were comfortable. Michael shifted in his seat. Right, but there are expenses coming. Medical stuff, as you get older. Long-term care eventually. These things cost money. If you sell the house, split the proceeds into investments, you'd have income for life. Derek's run the numbers. Of course Derek had. And if something happened to you, Sarah said carefully, if the house is still in your name, it goes through probate, legal fees, delays, complications. Whereas if you sold now, the money could be distributed much more cleanly to, your heirs. There it was, finally. Not we're worried about you, not we want you happy. Just make sure we get ours while you're still alive to sign the papers. Let me think about it, I said again. Michael's frustration showed for the first time. Dad, you've been saying that for a month now. At some point, you need to make a decision. We're trying to help you, and you're being stubborn. Your mother left me the house, I said quietly. I need time to figure out what she would have wanted. Sarah softened. Mom would have wanted you taken care of. She would have wanted you happy and safe, not rattling around alone in a house full of ghosts. She wasn't wrong about the ghosts. Catherine was everywhere here. Her garden, her book collection, her throw pillows, her coffee mugs. But Sarah thought those ghosts were haunting me. She didn't understand they were comforting me. After they left, I called Donald Pritchard, the lawyer. I think I'm ready, I told him. You've watched all of Catherine's videos? Everyone. And you're sure? I looked around the dining room, at the spaces where my children had sat, strategically positioned, armed with spreadsheets and concern. I'm sure. All right then. Here's how we proceed. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would agree to downsize. I would list the house. I would let them believe they were getting what they wanted. And then, the day before closing, I would leave for Vancouver Island. The children would inherit exactly what Catherine's will specified. Her jewelry, her personal items, some family heirlooms. The house sale proceeds would be mine alone to do with as I wished. And what I wished was to vanish. Over the next 2 months, I played my part. I agreed to list the house. I let Derek handle it. I toured retirement homes with Sarah. I had dinner with Michael and talked about downsizing. I also, quietly, shipped boxes to Margaret's address in Victoria. Books, photos, Catherine's things I couldn't leave behind. I transferred accounts. I updated my mailing address with government services. I packed my life into shipping containers, and I watched my children circle like sharks. The house sold in 3 days, $75,000 over asking. Sarah cried tears of relief. Dad, this is such a good thing. You're going to be so much happier in a smaller space. And the money you're set for life now. Where are you thinking of buying? Michael asked. Have you looked at places yet? Still deciding, I said. I'd told them I was renting temporarily while I figured things out. They accepted this. They were busy calculating their inheritance anyway. The night before closing, I had dinner with both children. A goodbye dinner, though they didn't know it. We went to Catherine's favorite restaurant, the one we'd celebrated every anniversary at for 30 years. Michael ordered wine. Sarah toasted new beginnings. And I sat there, looking at two people who looked like my children, but felt like strangers. "When does the money hit your account?" Michael asked over dessert. "A few days after closing. And you're still thinking about condos?" "I'm considering all my options." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We're so proud of you, Dad." This was a hard decision, but the right one. Mom would be proud too. Would she? Or would she be proud of what was about to happen? That night, I loaded the last of my essentials into the truck I'd rented. At 4 a.m., I left the keys on the counter of the empty Calgary house and started driving west. I drove through the Rockies as the sun came up, through the mountains Catherine and I had crossed dozens of times on camping trips with the kids when they were small. Back when they'd loved us simply, without calculation. Or maybe they'd always been this way, and we'd been too blind to see it. I took the ferry from Vancouver to Vancouver Island, watching the mainland recede. My phone buzzed constantly. Michael, Sarah, messages piling up. I'd told them I was visiting an old friend in Edmonton for a few days. They believed it because they wanted to believe it. The cottage was exactly as Catherine had described. Perched on a rocky point in Souk, windows facing the Pacific. Clean, modern, but with touches that were pure Catherine. The blue curtains she loved, the cedar furniture, books on the shelves. Margaret was waiting on the porch with Emily. They'd stocked the fridge, put fresh flowers on the table, made sure everything was ready. "She really thought of everything," Margaret said, hugging me. "My sister always was the planner." Emily handed me a final envelope. "Grandma Catherine gave this to me 2 years ago. She said to give it to you when you arrived." I opened it on the deck, watching the sunset over the Pacific. "Thomas, if you're reading this, you've made it. You're free. You're home. I know you're probably feeling guilty right now, wondering if you did the right thing, questioning whether you misjudged Michael and Sarah. Let me say this clearly. You didn't. I spent 5 years watching them show you exactly who they were. You were too kind to see it. You always wanted to believe the best in everyone, especially your own children. But Thomas, sometimes people tell you who they are through their actions, not their words. And our children told us, over and over, that they valued our assets more than our company. You gave them good childhoods. You paid for educations. You supported their dreams. You loved them unconditionally. And in return, they saw you as a bank account to be liquidated at the right moment. This isn't your failure. This is theirs. Now, here's what happens next. The house is sold. The money is yours. They'll realize soon that they're not getting any inheritance from the sale. They'll be angry. They'll call. They might even try to contest things legally they can't. Donald made sure of that, but they might try. You don't have to answer. You don't have to explain. You don't owe them anything. But if you want to, there's a letter in the drawer of the desk in the study. It explains everything. You can send it or not. Your choice. Live your life, Thomas. Find joy. Maybe volunteer at that wildlife rescue you've always talked about. Take up painting again. Adopt a dog. Make friends who choose you for who you are, not what you have. Emily will check on you. Margaret will visit. You're not alone. You're just finally free of people who made you feel alone, even when they were in the room. I love you. I'm sorry I'm not there to see you in this new chapter. But I'm glad I could give you this gift. Forever yours. Catherine. I sat on that deck until the stars came out. Then I found the letter she'd mentioned. Read it. And in the morning, I mailed it to both children. The letter was short. Michael and Sarah, by now you've realized that the proceeds from the house sale are not being split with you. You're probably confused, possibly angry. Let me explain. Your mother and I bought that house 30 years ago. We paid the mortgage. We maintained it. It was ours. And when she died, it became mine alone. You are not entitled to the money from its sale. You didn't earn it. You didn't contribute to it. You simply expected it because you viewed me as an inheritance waiting to happen. For the past 4 months, neither of you asked how I was coping with losing my wife of 43 years. You asked about real estate values. You asked about wills. You asked about financial planning, but not once did you ask if I was okay. Your mother saw this years ago. She predicted exactly how you would behave after she died, and she made arrangements to protect me from you. I'm starting a new life now, in a place you don't know about, with people who actually care about me as a person. The house money will support that life. You'll inherit what your mother left you in her will. Personal items, some jewelry, family photos. That's all you're getting. If you're angry about this, ask yourselves why you're angry. Is it because you miss me? Or because you're not getting money you never earned? I wish things were different. I wish I was writing you from that retirement home. Sarah found. Excited about your visits, grateful for your concern, but that would have been a lie. And your mother taught me, in the end, to stop lying to myself about who you've become. I loved you both very much. Past tense, intentional. Your father, Michael, called 47 times the first day. Sarah called 33. They left voicemails that ranged from confused to angry to threatening. I didn't listen to most of them. Michael tried the legal route. He hired a lawyer to contest the sale, to claim I was mentally incompetent, to accuse me of hiding assets. Donald shut him down within a week. Everything was legal. Everything was documented. The house was mine to sell. The money was mine to keep. Sarah showed up in Victoria, Margaret told me. She'd figured out where Margaret lived and came demanding answers. Margaret shut the door in her face and called the police when Sarah wouldn't leave. After 3 months, the calls stopped. They'd given up, or they'd accepted it, or they'd simply moved on to their own lives and their own problems. I adopted a dog, a retriever mix from the local shelter, already old, unwanted. We understood each other. I named him Douglas, after the fir trees everywhere, and he followed me on morning walks along the beach. Emily visited once a month. She was finishing her degree in environmental science at UVic. She'd come for dinner, tell me about her studies, ask about my life. She never mentioned money, never calculated my worth. She just seemed glad to see me. Your mom was good to my mom when she needed help, Emily said once. After my dad left, Aunt Catherine co-signed a loan so we didn't lose the apartment. She paid for my school supplies when Mom was between jobs. She never asked for anything back. I didn't know that. She didn't want you to. She said some help should be quiet. That's what family does, real family. Real family. Turned out my real family wasn't the one I'd raised, but the one Catherine had quietly built around us. Margaret, Emily. The neighbors in Souk who welcomed me without asking questions. The volunteers at the wildlife rescue where I spent my Thursdays. I found a painting class. Hadn't touched a brush since college, but Catherine had always said I had an eye for color. Turned out I wasn't half bad. Started selling small canvases at the local gallery, nothing fancy, just coastal scenes, the ocean at different times of day. The money went to the rescue. 1 year after arriving, I stood on the deck and scattered some of Catherine's ashes into the Pacific. I'd kept half the urn, waiting until I knew I was happy. Until I could tell her, wherever she was, that her plan had worked. You were right, I said to the wind. About everything. About them. About this place. About what I needed. Douglas barked at a seal offshore. The sun was setting, painting the water orange and pink. Somewhere on the mainland, my children were living their lives. I hoped they were happy. I hoped they'd learned something. But mostly, I just didn't think about them much anymore. That night, I wrote in the journal Emily had given me. She said Catherine had kept journals her whole life, and maybe I should try it. I'd been skeptical, but there was something clarifying about putting thoughts on paper. Year 1 complete, I wrote. Sold the Calgary house for $925,000. The children expected to split that 3 ways, roughly $308,000 each. Instead, they got their mother's jewelry and some photo albums. The cottage is worth $780,000. Now it's appreciated since Catherine bought it. The investment account has grown to $695,000. Combined with the house sale and my pension, I have more than enough for the rest of my life. More importantly, I have peace. I wake up when I want. I paint when inspiration strikes. I volunteer because I want to, Not because I'm trying to fill empty hours. Douglas is good company. Emily is family in the way I thought family was supposed to be. I don't regret the decision, not even a little. Catherine knew what she was doing. She always did. 2 years in, Sarah sent a letter. Not an email, not a text, but a physical letter. Handwritten, Dad, I know we haven't spoken in a long time. I've been angry. I felt betrayed and confused. But I've been in therapy, and my therapist has helped me see some things I didn't want to see about myself. You were right. Mom was right. Michael and I were circling, waiting, calculating. I didn't even realize I was doing it. Or maybe I did. And I justified it by telling myself we were being practical or helping you plan. I remember when I was 10, and you drove 3 hours in a snowstorm to pick me up from camp when I called crying. I remember you sitting with me every night for a week when Mom was in the hospital having Michael, reading me stories even though you were exhausted. I remember you teaching me to drive, to change a tire, to balance a checkbook, and I repaid all that by seeing you as a financial asset. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a relationship. I'm writing because I needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I became. And I'm sorry. I hope you're happy, wherever you are. You deserve to be. Love, Sarah. I read the letter 3 times, cried a bit, showed it to Emily, who read it silently and handed it back without comment. Do you think she means it? I asked. Does it matter? I don't know. Would you want her back in your life? I thought about that, really thought about it. No, I said finally. Not because I don't forgive her, but because I don't want to go back to wondering when the next ask is coming, when the next calculation is happening. I'm too old to live like that. Then don't, Emily said simply. I wrote back. Just a short note. Sarah, I appreciate your letter. I'm glad you're working on yourself. That takes courage. I forgive you. I don't forget, but I forgive. I'm happy. I'm building a life that's peaceful and full. I hope you build the same for yourself. Take care, Dad. I didn't include a return address. Michael never apologized. From what Margaret heard through the family grapevine, he was still angry, still convinced I'd somehow cheated him. That was his weight to carry. 3 years in, I met someone. Anne, a widow, volunteer coordinator at the wildlife rescue. We started with coffee after Thursday shifts, progressed to dinner, eventually to something resembling companionship. Not marriage, neither of us wanted that again, but genuine connection. She'd lost her husband to cancer, too. She had 2 kids who called her regularly, visited for holidays, genuinely seemed to care about her happiness. They welcomed me kindly, but without agenda. It was strange, seeing what normal family relationships looked like. Your kids never visit? Anne asked once, carefully. No. You don't talk? No. Do you miss them? I considered that. I miss who I thought they were. I miss the idea of them. But the reality? No. I don't miss the reality. She nodded, understanding without judgment. That was the thing about people who'd lived a bit. They knew that family was complicated, that love wasn't always enough, that sometimes the kindest thing you could do was walk away. 4 years in, Emily graduated. I was in the audience with Margaret and Anne when she walked across the stage. Afterward, she found us in the crowd and hugged me tight. Thank you, she said, for everything. I didn't do anything. You showed me what Aunt Catherine meant about quiet kindness. You could have been bitter about your kids. You could have written off all young people. But you didn't. You chose to still be generous where it mattered. She started a job with Parks Canada, working on coastal conservation. She'd come for dinner once a month still, bringing research papers and stories about her work. Sometimes she'd stay over in the spare room, and we'd have breakfast watching the ocean like we'd done it forever. 5 years in, I got an email from Michael. Subject line, "Can we talk?" I deleted it without reading. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. I painted that afternoon. A canvas I'd been planning for months, the view from the deck at sunrise, Douglas silhouetted against the orange sky. It sold the next week for more than I expected. The buyer wanted to commission more pieces. Life had become simple, in the best way. Morning walks, painting, volunteering, dinner with Anne twice a week, Emily's monthly visits, the quiet routine of someone who'd finally figured out what mattered. Sometimes I thought about Catherine, wondered if she could see this, if she knew her plan had worked not just logistically, but emotionally, if she knew I wasn't just surviving, but actually genuinely happy. I like to think she did. I like to think she was somewhere smiling, that knowing smile she always had when one of her plans came together perfectly. On what would have been our 48th anniversary, I took the kayak out at dawn, paddled to a small island about a mile offshore, scattered the rest of Catherine's ashes while the sun came up. "Thank you," I said to the wind, the water, the morning, for seeing what I couldn't see, for loving me enough to protect me, for giving me this. A seal surfaced nearby, watching me with dark eyes. Douglas barked from the shore where I'd left him. The current pulled the ashes out to sea, and I watched until they disappeared completely. Then I paddled back to shore, to Douglas, to the cottage, to the life my wife had given me, the life I'd chosen to live fully, the life where I was valued for who I was, not what I had. I was 73 now. My children were strangers. My wife was gone. But I had Emily, Margaret, Anne, Douglas, my painting, my volunteering, this view, this peace. And honestly, that was more than enough. That was everything.